Nobody talks about waking up in the matrix and then still having to deal and live inside the matrix while believing and knowing that all of it is fake. And I'm not going to lie, that's been one of the hardest freaking things on this journey, on this spiritual awakening and this awakening that I've been going on for the last 5 years. My health, my mental, my spiritual, everything. And it's really taxing on the system when you realize everything is fake, from the TV to the politicians to the jobs to the money to the power to the government to literally everything that's out there. It's all fake, and it's all a system rigged against us, and it's all fake. The medicine, the agriculture, the school system, literally everything is all fake. But the problem is when you wake up inside the matrix and you understand that everything is all fake, you realize that it's all so fake and it goes so deep that you cannot still avoid it. You still have to be in the matrix and apply and be inside of it, knowing that it's fake. Because here's the thing, you still got responsibilities, you still got bills, you still got kids to pay, you still got kids to raise, you still got food to get, you still got to do all the regular things that everybody else still has to do, while knowing that it's all fake. So I don't know if you're going through this like I am, but if you are, you understand how difficult this part is to know that you have a higher soul, you have a higher power, you are part of a higher power, and you're here in this simulation or artificial matrix or whatever this thing is, and you have to participate it because you're in it, and it stretches so deeply that you can't just step out of it because you just can't do that. I mean, I guess you could go live by yourself in isolation, out in the woods or up on a mountain or something, but that's not real life. And it's such a really weird spot to be, because like literally everything that you knew and loved and was literally like crumbles right in front of you. But then you realize that you still have to participate in the thing that you know right now is not real. And it's very difficult on my soul to do that. So if this is happening to you and you're going through this too, just know you're not alone. There's others out there like you.
Well, here we are. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday, September 10, 2025. We're going out of the matrix into prime reality with all the bangs and all the bells and all the quiet and silent parts. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube today in the live chat, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful moderator, Ronnie. I know our other moderator, Raymond, is in the air today. He is traveling back from New Zealand to Europe. And thank you, everybody else. Of course, Christine, as the wise thumbs in the live chat, has inspired my wonderful wife. Friends, here's the thing with this subject. This is going to continually come up, so just be prepared for this. I deem this to be the master class in what we all have to do and what we will continue to have to do. The more we practice it, the easier it will get for us. But the challenges that people are going to have with what is unfolding in the world and just how chaotic things are getting and how in many ways really bad, that is something that we have to spiritually deal with in an authentic and grounded way. There's no bypassing, none of that bullshit. We're going to do this the right way. But let me preface today's show by saying in the following months and years, you will be incredibly positively surprised by quite a few people and how they will thrive and live through these times. But the greatest sort of head scratchers are going to come from some of the people within our community that simply can't cope with what they're seeing. So I have said this many, many times, and I want to make this very clear. We don't have a magic bullet that's going to fix the world's problems and all the shit overnight. So that's unfolding. However, you have literally a magic bullet, a magic pen, a magic pencil, a magic brush to paint your own reality bubble. But you have no control over others. So this is so important to know. We have no control over other people. We can positively influence them, but we have no control. So if I look at today's headlines, let me just show you, because we need this as a springboard. I know people don't want to hear this, but here's today's headlines. Ursula von der Leyen, the German dictator, the EU dictator, I'm sorry, the EU dictator came out today and warned about we're on the brink of a start of another global health crisis, and EU announces a new global health resilience initiative to combat disinformation. Well, what that means is censorship, more censorship, more censorship. And this is the EU is on. So all that the EU is focused on in all of their work is war. So let's not sugarcoat this. The European Union and the European continent are at the brink of war, all out war. Yesterday, there were Russian, supposedly, allegedly Russian suicide drones that flew into Polish airspace, caused this huge reaction. There's a good chance it was a false flag. There's a good chance this is a theater. We will never know these things. We can only assume. But the provocations have been there for months and months and months to trigger a massive response. But Europe is already at war with Russia, right? So they're already financially, with weapons and even personnel, they're already supporting Ukraine in this. They're treating Ukraine as if it was a NATO member. So this is happening, right? There's just a little glimpse of what's happening. And you have multiple countries all over Europe and all over the world, by the way, on the brink of collapse. The French government once again collapses. It's like a 8-month spiel, every 8 months they collapse. And France has been in a state of upheaval for a very long time. That's just phases of more calm, and then it all comes up again because none of the problems are solved. You see ongoing cultural conflicts in European countries. You see the UK constantly flaming the fire. So you see, of course, Israel has attacked 6 countries in the last 72 hours, so that's all of that is to say the world as we would perceive it, the systems of the world, the government systems, financial systems, it's moving through this incredible period of chaos, and it's increasing the chaos. And that was to be expected. That was always the plan. You go back to Zbigniew Brzezinski and Henry Kissinger, 2 of the most influential geopolitical minds, at least to the public, of the 20th century. Close advisors to many world leaders, specifically, of course, in the US, but heavily involved in the machine of geopolitics. Just go what they always wrote. They always wrote that the next big conflict was going to happen on European soil. So this is not for me to say, oh, needs to happen, but all signs currently show us that this is where the world wants to go. This is where the psychopath wants to go. So today's show is about how do we walk a spiritual path? How do we walk a grounded path? How do we even thrive? How do we have balance and harmony amid the chaos? And this is a age-old question that all the big teachers, all the big authors, all the big masters of the past have had to deal with, because war and suffering have always been a part of the experience here. But if we don't practice this, every single day and are aware, we fall into the trap that almost everybody stumbles into, is to get into states of despair and stay there, is to have our empathy wash over us in a way that it sucks us down with it. And it is difficult to be here on camera and say, yes, horrible things are going on in the world. Incredible injustices, genocides, abuses, all of the above are going on. And I'm asking you to give yourself permission to thrive while others are experiencing incredible suffering. This is a difficult thing. And there's ultimately nothing I could say, that would sort of invalidate statements like, but how can I thrive if there are injustices happening? How can I live my best life when children are being bombed and dying? Those are all valid questions. And there is no simple answer to that. The only thing I can tell you that I've come to is, if I am in a state of despair, hopelessness, worry, fear, and doubt, I cannot be of help to others, even though that we think that's how it works, even though that we were taught that we can only be helpful if we fully understand the pain that they're going through and we feel it at all times. And that's simply not true. But that is a difficult thing. But we know that the ones who have had the greatest impact on others were those who have not lost their connection or empathy, but have vibrated at a very, very, very high level of ultimately unconditional love. So the spiritual path, the first thing that we need to do in the spiritual path through chaos is to acknowledge reality without denial, meaning there is a shared reality bubble and there's an individual reality bubble. And on both ends, when we acknowledge things without denial, it's the first step to betterment every single time. On the global, on the worldwide scale, within mainstream society, within mainstream everything, there are horrible things happening and there will continue to happen for the foreseeable future. uh, the darkness exists, wars are there, abuses are there, deception is there, poverty is there, sickness is there. Those things do exist. Pretending they don't exist is spiritual bypassing. Pretending it's not happening, all of that crap is childish. And I would never encourage people to pretend that it's not real, that it's not true, in the sense of it's not happening. However, the caveat here being, you do not help anchor it into permanent existence by making it a irrefutable fact. You just accept that currently it is still unfolding. But darkness isn't something new, it's always been here. And to a certain degree, we have to also accept the duality of things, that without darkness, no light, and vice versa. So the ultimate healing at some point will be for the reunion of the two into perfect balance, but we're nowhere near that. So this is a time of revelation. And as much as it hurts, just because you are further along on the journey doesn't mean that others don't need to see the dirt that's underneath the rug and that's been there for a very long time. So to say, oh, we're past this, you are, and a critical mass of people might be, but very, very many are just beginning to realize, and they still need to see this unfold as it is unfolding. So acknowledgement, step one. Step two, understanding the nature of darkness, what it feeds on, how it expands. Darkness, and we're just using it metaphorically, darkness is the unseen, the shadow, the lower vibration and vibrational spheres of fear, of worry, of despair, of hopelessness. Very, very low vibrational frequencies and states of being that are happening on the consciousness scale, very, very low. And they anchor in certain events and feelings and everything that goes and resonates with it. But it is like a field. When you observe it detached, emotionally not attached, you don't really, yes, there is the observer effect, but an observer without emotional investment doesn't have a big effect on the field whatsoever. But when you get emotionally involved, which we all run the danger of doing that, even the best out there, the best people that have done this for decades, you can see them fall into states of rage and anger and even despair. And I don't want to minimize that or call them out or judge that. It's human. Like, it's not that this isn't human, but the truth is that our true nature is not human. Human is our experience. So we have to rise above this humanness sometimes and go into higher levels so we can see how we actually might assist this. So darkness feeds on fear. These lower vibrational states feed on fear and despair. So awareness doesn't mean entanglement. You just see things without being consumed by them, right? This is where we go into what I call the inner firewall. And if you don't have it, you are at you are at the mercy of whatever comes in your path. If you don't have a clear boundary that you can open and close, make bigger or smaller, depending on what your needs are in the moment, if you don't have boundaries, you are living a life that is outside of your control, your sovereignty, and your freedom. You're at the mercy of whatever enters your field of awareness. So having no boundaries is about the dumbest thing anyone could do. Um, so we have to have that. We have to be conscious. And the greatest challenge today is not that when we go out into our physical world, when we go to the store and whatnot, that's not where the greatest challenges lie, usually, depending on where you live. But for many people, that's not where the greatest challenges are. They're in the digital world, they're in the scrolling, they're in the sphere of social media, of our consumption of news and podcasts and whatnot. Believe me, the irony is not lost on me. But we have to become much more aware and conscious about this. Why do we do things? Why do we consume things? When do we consume them? And what state are we in? So I encourage everyone, do not begin your day unconsciously. Become the captain of the ship every morning after you awaken. Every single morning, reaffirm the position of being the captain of your ship, being the conscious commander of your life. And that first and foremost means to set the tone for the day. What do? Do you take 20 deep breaths? Do you go within? Do you feel gratitude in the first moments? Do you express something beautiful into the field? Do you listen to something that's inspiring, a beautiful piece of music, the sound of birds chirping, whatever does that for you? Or do you jump headfirst into the news, into the scrolling, into the doom and the gloom and all that crap? Because that's what's going to set the tone for your day. So you have to build up that firewall that where you become the conscious decider on what's that going to be. So then even afterwards, ask yourself throughout the day, am I consuming this because I want to be informed about something? I need to know something clearer. Am I consuming this because I'm just in a scroll mode that the millions and millions and millions of dollars are being spent every day to keep us scrolling, to create algorithmic patterns so that we continue to scroll? So let's get aware of that, become aware. Am I doing this consciously, or am I being manipulated into fear? For me, reading those headlines to you earlier wasn't about putting you in a state of fear. It was an acknowledgement of the current unfolding as we can see it. However, in my own reality bubble, I don't see that unfolding. Like where I am at and the land that I walk on and the people that I communicate with in my immediate reality, that's not what's happening here. There are no drones in the sky bombing shit. There's no threat of war right now here where I'm at. However, that doesn't mean that we are not looking beyond this, because first, we have viewers all over the world. Second, these things do eventually affect us. We have to be aware. So you have to be conscious about what you consume and how you consume it and when you consume it. Very, very important. Next piece here is like I just said, conscious consumption of the news. What is this little corner down here today? What am I missing? Well, anyways, the conscious consumption of news. This is everything that we just talked about. So be very aware of that. The next thing is, we are not simply observers. We're not simply passive sheep that are powerless. This is where we go beyond our reality bubble. And even though we can't control the larger setting, we can influence it positively. You know about consciousness compensation. You know that when you vibrate at a very high level and you emanate love, real love into the field, that has an effect. Actually has a big effect, right? You might not be able to pinpoint where that effect is happening the most, but it is happening. So when we read about war, when we see it, yesterday, when I saw the headlines about the drones in Polish airspace, and it didn't matter so much to me whether that was true in the moment or not, because as soon as the headlines go out, the perception of it is there. So what happens when people hear about Russian suicide drones in Polish airspace? Well, anyone who's even close to Poland or even further away is going to feel some fear, some worry, some shock, some doubt, some, oh my God, right? So, what can we do when we see such headlines, when we see such pieces of news? We go into the opposite. We go into the love. We go into a space of unconditional love, and we just radiate that out into that direction where it's coming from, because that's the best thing we can do. I'm in I'm in Tennessee right now. It's not like I can walk up to the Polish prime minister or to, the Russian president or whoever else is involved and say, "Hey, cut the crap here. Let's stop this shit." But I can influence it on another level. And every ray of love sent out from you with intention, with purity, with authenticity will have an effect. Will have an effect. Um, Also, when you observe corruption, when you really get pissed off about what's happening in your own country, in your own politics, wherever, in your own uh, office, go back to your space and remind yourself that even in the face of such corruption and deception, you are committing to even more truth and authenticity in your own expression, right? You are, rather than letting yourself be pulled down to those levels, you're leveling up even more. This is the reaction. This is the action that we need to take in such cases. This is like spiritual aikido, um, where you use what comes as you, what comes at you, and you fuel an up leveling with it. It's a harmonious transmutation of violence, aggression, and whatnot, and we can do that. We're capable of it. We do run the danger as researchers and as empathetic people. We run the danger of having very vengeful thoughts and fantasies. um there are things that trigger that within me. Don't get me wrong. When we talk about children, when we talk about women that are getting attacked and brutalized and whatnot, all I can think about is, you can probably imagine. And then it takes me a while to step into a place of love and realize hurt people hurt people. It's not healthy, balanced, harmonious people that hurt people. So that is something that I need to remind myself of. Otherwise, I really just want to go for, you know, rounds of ammo and whatnot. All right. So then also from the spiritual practices, from the meditations, from all of that, we need to anchor this into real life action. Um, in the spiritual community, there's this perception, false perception, that no action is needed. I strongly disagree with that. Action anchors all that intention, love, and energy into lived reality. Like it informs, basically through action. You're constantly informing yourself of where you truly stand. So the action that you're capable of taking and the stuff that you're able of creating informs you of where you truly stand in your level of consciousness, because you can never take action or create beyond your true level where you're at. You can't fake yourself into something. So when we use these things, when we see these things, for example, how many people know that most of the food that they can buy in a grocery store is either poisoned or full of toxins and chemicals? So once you know that something is full of toxins and chemicals, if you go there and continue to buy it, well, that says so much about your self respect. That says so much about how much or little you value yourself. So taking new action would be look for better sources of food. The next really better thing would be start growing your own. Even if you only have an apartment, there's things that you can do to start that. Um, when we see the wars, when we see this, how can we in that moment or on that day demonstrate a greater level of love towards others around us. Every time now that I'm in traffic, there's so many opportunities for me to get angry or frustrated because people drive like zombies, everybody's on their phone. And when I fall into that trap, I contribute to the same energy. So when I see someone that's on their phone distracted, my first my first thought is, let me send them a little a little wave of shock so they get startled and start paying attention. And the next thing is, let me send them some love. Let me send them some calm. Obviously something keeps them on their phone, like they're nervous. Let me send them some calm energy. Let me send them some love without any attachments to it. So the demonstration, that's the action. That's the remember, before enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water. After enlightenment, if it's real enlightenment, you chop and carry water. If it's fake enlightenment, you sit down and you think it's all done. The real enlightenment makes you chop wood and carry water, just in a different energy. When lies are being spread, which once again, we see lies, it's like people think it's getting worse, but it's really only getting shown to us. Lies everywhere, deception everywhere. Speak the truth. Speak it calmly, speak it courageously, speak it, right? Don't fall into the trap of conforming, of walking with the crowd, or not not upsetting anything. The greatest, biggest lie is, don't upset the order by speaking against it. Well, if the order is lies, you got to speak truth. You're speaking for the truth, not against the lie. You're speaking for the truth. Really, really important. And build fields with others. Like virtually is the easiest step right now for many people. Like we have been saying, this is what our beautiful community and locals is all about, creating these fields. And we have one of our members there is called Thomas, and he's making these weekly Zoom calls to roundtables where he brings people in and they share, they talk, they're just getting together. And we'd love for it to grow bigger. And people say, Jean, Christine, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Well, let me throw it back to you. Why don't you do it? If it's something that you're inspired to do, just like Thomas was, do it. Don't wait for anyone to do it. Start your own little group, whether that's a prayer group, a meditation group, just a coffee chat. Get together for coffee once a week for an hour. If it's only 2 people in the beginning, so what? Remember, I always loved, you would go into the diners, and there were the old men, usually the farmers, sort of in retirement. They would sit there, have coffee every morning, and talk about whatever they talked about. But we can do that. We should do that. If it's virtually cool, but expand it into real life, begin gathering the energy and intentionally focusing it on great and beautiful things. Incredibly important. Our community does this beautifully. They share with each other on local. So many people, because people can post. Our subscribers there can post, they can share, they can comment. So they post videos of their gardens, of their travels. Raymond, aka 2 Steps Behind, one of our moderators, he literally shared daily from his travels through New Zealand. It was inspiring. It's like we were there with him.
Well, and he stayed at people's houses from the local community.
And he connected with people from the locals community on his travels and stayed at their houses. So you see, this is what this is about, friends. And in that sense, locals is the perfect name for that platform also, by the way. And then we have the ability, when we go through these steps, we can reframe the larger story. We can start going into the 40,000 foot view and realize we are in a stage of transition. Paths are intensifying. Paths of darkness are intensifying for the people who do not wish to step out of it. So what I see now is everything is turbo. You might have noticed this. People have turbo cancers. I'm sorry to hear that. And I know there's multiple factors including that, but it's people usually don't go through sicknesses for years and years anymore. Everything goes very quick. People move very quickly into greater and greater states of despair and psychosis and mental disorders. Um, their relationships are breaking down faster. It is just a sign of wherever there is a signal, it's going to intensify more until you change the signal, until you change the frequency. On the flip side of this, people that make a new choice have the benefit of open energy windows where the new choice brings more good stuff into their lives quicker. That's the energy of our time. Those who really commit to a different path, different choices, it goes faster, much faster than it used to go. 15 years ago, we considered everything to be very slow. Now things go really, really fast. So this is where we reframe this. We realize that there cannot be a transformation without a collapse. How can we build something new when the old is still standing and working? That's not how it works. The old is crumbling while the new is being built, and it's happening simultaneously. You have that collapse, you have the chaos, you have the violence, but then you also have incredible acts of kindness and love and beauty. Wonderful. Okay. It's a new era, literally. And we are not called to hide. I do encourage people to have their space. I do encourage people to, I said this many, many times, and at some point, all the naysayers and the people that criticize me for it will understand what I meant. Cities are simply not going to be a good place to be. And people want to fight me on that because they love the comforts of cities. They love their, everything is within 5 minutes. Well, cool. More power to you. And I've also been criticized, by the way, over my statements that city people usually don't have any essential survival skills. Well, that's my lifelong experience. When you talk to city people that have lived in cities for a very long time, they're very good at city things. But ask them how to grow a plant, ask them how to care for it, ask them how to harvest, ask them all any of that. They don't know that, right? They pity the farmer because the farmer has to plow the fields and be out there, but they need the farmer. The farmer doesn't need them. That's an old story. So I'm not saying city people are bad people. I'm just saying when it comes to essential skills, very few have them, and you can find them much more in rural areas. That's a fact of life. Another fact is that um, city people are usually really good at running city things and running cities, running an asphalt jungle. But since they have no experience of nature and nature rhythms, when they try to run those things, it's usually very chaotic because they apply city logic to nature, and that does not compute. So that's what I was trying to say. And if people feel offended, well, so be it. I'm not saying there aren't city people who can do these things. I was talking about the average, and the average can't. Actually, I would say that a child of 12 years that grew up on a farm has will survive in certain situations that city people who are 60 years old won't, very clearly. And so this is just, I encourage people to go into the 40,000 foot view and look at these things. So it's not about running, it's not about condemning or judging, but to acknowledge what we are going through. If you plan your life according to what you thought 10 or 15 years ago, if you plan to uh, adhere to the same rules that were in place 15 years ago, that's not going to work. The world is changing so rapidly at a pace we have never before seen. And the collateral damage is not only accepted, it's actually wanted. So we have to be spiritually, physically, mentally at our best and grounded and balanced and walk our path from a spiritual perspective more than from a simply physical perspective. When we practice this, and we all have to, life becomes beautiful, much easier. And the news that will reach us and the suffering that we will observe will become easier to witness. And like I said, this is not an easy discussion. This is not something that's easy to accept or even to live. And we have seen nothing yet. We've seen nothing yet. I want to close this by also saying that I don't see any geographic location in the world. Sure, you could go into the jungle or into the high mountains and live in isolation. That's a possibility. But if you're going to be anywhere where there are other people, you're going to experience this, because it is not a geographically isolated phenomenon, because it's ultimately not something that it's something that's cosmic, if you will. It's happening under cosmic influences. It's happening in a much greater cycle. So no one is excluded, right? Just saying. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. Here's an invitation and a bonus tip that will become even more feelable for people. The vast majority of people who've made the choice to try FLFE, focused life force energy, have had amazing experiences. It is, like I said, one of the most important services today. And I envision a world where it's 2026, it's 2027, and let's say you move, right? You move into a new place, you move to your homestead, and there's certain things you're going to do. You're going to probably still get your power turned on, even though you have something alternative. You're going to get maybe your water turned on, even though you got your well. You're going to get internet service, and you're going to get FLFE. Everybody's going to get FLFE on their property. It's going to be a standard move-in, check-in protocol, because the overall positive effects of FLFE on so many levels of life, I would say, outperform most, if not all, other services that I'm aware of right now. So there's nothing in the arena of services that offers what FLFE offers and delivers. It's never a replacement for our own practices. It's not a magic elixir that fixes everything for you. It is a high consciousness field in which you live at all times. It's always there. It always supports you. It's basically like having a few highly trained monks meditating in your home at all times. And that's what this beautiful Tesla-inspired spiritual technology does. If you want to learn more, please go to highconsciousnessfield.com. Start your free trial, 15 days, no credit card needed, no nothing. Yes?
It's not a magic, whatever.
No, I just said it. It's not a magic. It doesn't fix, it doesn't fix your life for you.
Not fix your illness.
No, it doesn't. It
It
doesn't do. It's not like, oh, I'm going to turn on the field and this fixes my life. It's like a support. So you are in a high consciousness field, and you have an easier time doing these things for yourself, showing up for yourself, giving forgiveness. Meditation goes deeper. I mean, that's such a common testimonial. Meditations go much deeper. Connections are more intense. The energy is cleared from your land and your property. Plants grow better. Animals feel better. Children are more elevated usually, and conflicts get solved in an easier way. Those are the trends that people experience in an FLFE field. That doesn't mean it happens for everyone and not at the same intensity. So that being said, we'd love for you to try it, highconsciousnessfield.com. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. You know, we love you, we appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon.
Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy, but most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.